Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily.
I wish every single day that this was a nightmare that I could just wake up from.
Heartfelt victim impact statements are presented in the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial. And Daunte Wright's girlfriend files suit against Kim Potter for emotional and physical damage.
Have you had long-term impacts from that broken jaw or the injuries that you suffered?
Yeah.
Plus, Kristin Smart's college roommate takes the stand as a former classmate and his father are tried for her murder. But first,
how are you feeling today, Alex?
I actually feel good because I get a chance to, for the first time, say what's really going on instead of the corporate media and high-powered law firms manipulating what I actually did.
Conspiracy theory broadcaster Alex Jones takes the stand in the Sandy Hook defamation civil trial. Law and Crime Daily, covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome, everybody, to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber in for Brian Buckmeyer. The defense rests shortly after InfoWars host and conspiracy theory broadcaster Alex Jones takes the stand in his own defense in the Sandy Hook civil trial in Texas as the only defense witness. In 2012, a gunman entered the Connecticut elementary school and killed 20 first-grade students and 6 staff members. After the shooting, Jones said on his InfoWars show that he believed it was all a hoax and staged with government actors in order to push gun control. Though he later said he believed the shooting did happen, he claims he had a constitutional right to say it didn't. Now, the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims sued the political conspiracy theorist over his comments. Courts in both Texas and Connecticut found Jones liable for defamation, entering default judgments against him, saying he ignored several court orders and failed to respond to discovery demands. Juries will now determine what he will pay in damages. This first trial out in Texas stems from the lawsuit filed by Neil Heslin and Scarlett Lewis, the parents of 6-year-old victim Jesse Lewis. They both testified this week to the impact of Jones's comments and how they're still impacted now a decade later. Jones took the stand as the only defense witness Tuesday and Wednesday. During cross-examination, Jones was asked about his comments about the shooting and other incidents being fake.
You talked Boston bombing. You've been telling the world, fake, not real. A Department of Homeland Security drill, right?
There was a drill. I think real people got bombed. But we've asked questions on both sides here.
Yeah, you've said the exact opposite. You've in fact said that some of those people who were claimed to be injured were crisis actors in other tragedies. Just like in Sandy Hook, you said.
No, we reported on other people saying that.
And in fact, you've said about some of the people at Sandy Hook. During your coverage of Sandy Hook, you have said they were actually some of the people pretending to be injured in the Boston bombing. You said that.
I don't remember that.
Okay. You remember the shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018?
Yes.
And you called a bunch of people crisis actors there. You said crisis actors were used in Parkland, Florida, right?
No, I didn't. I said they had the film, the drama club then go do interviews about it because they had skills to present themselves.
Do you remember saying that Parkland was a false flag engineered to start a civil war?
I said it could. I mean, I believe it could be.
You would agree with me that every single mass tragedy, mass shooting, mass bombing that you can recall right now in the past 15 years, you have attached the words false flag to it. Yes or no?
No.
At the end of the day Tuesday, there were some pretty tense moments with the judge and also after she left the bench.
You may not say to this jury that you complied with discovery. That is not true. You may not say it again. You may not tell this jury that you are bankrupt. That is also not true.
I believe what I said was true. So
Yes, you believe everything you say is true, but it isn't. Your beliefs do not make something true.
I believe you said that. I apologize for that.
And that he's slow and all sorts of things.
No, I'm slow on certain things too. I'll be honest on here. A lot of stuff you said.
That's it. We're not talking anymore. You're not doing this. That's not even a thought. That's not the way this goes.
We're shutting on him. Wow. Like you can't feed them fake videos anymore? No, shut your mouth. That's what you're trying to shut my mouth. You'll never succeed.
Oh boy. Joining us today, co-host Terry Austin and trial attorney Bernarda Villalona. It's great to have you both here. Bernarda, I'll start with you. The judge said that Jones wasn't telling the truth under oath. Big no-no. So could he be held in contempt of court?
Jesse, Alex Jones, can I say, liar, liar, pants on fire. But unfortunately, as you can see, Judge Gamble is not playing with either party, but especially with Alex Jones. Now, will there be charges in terms of contempt of court? I highly doubt it. If anything, if the judge were to believe that Alex Jones is lying, you would need a district attorney's office to be willing to prosecute him on perjury charges. But in terms of contempt charges, I don't see it for lying under oath. However, the attorneys can be held responsible in terms of contempt of court if they're not following with the demands or the requests that were made. So, for example, Judge Gamble said, look, you cannot say that you complied with discovery, obviously, because it did not happen.
Right.
So if that were to happen in terms of the attorney saying that, then the judge can hold the attorney in terms of contempt. But I don't see that with Alex Jones yet. But you never know what's going to happen.
So, Terry, you know, during Jones's cross-examination, the plaintiff's counsel asked if he was aware that his attorney accidentally sent all of his text messages to him. How do you think that's going to affect the case?
Oh, what a tangle web we weave. When we first practice to deceive, it will affect the case. The jury heard all of that. Jones claimed that he didn't have any text. He said he looked through all of his texts. There was nothing on Sandy Hook on the shooting or anything.
Right.
He basically said at his deposition that I have nothing to give you. As it turns out, his own attorney accidentally sent it to the plaintiff's attorney. And frankly, all of the jury is going to get to see that and hear that. So I think it's something that's going to hurt his case.
Yeah, Alex Jones maybe not being that truthful. That's something that the jury's going to have to consider. All right, we'll keep following it. But we want to head north right now to Illinois, where the man accused of committing the Highland Park mass shooting enters a not guilty plea on all counts. Just last week, the suspect was indicted on 117 counts for opening fire during a 4th of July parade. 7 people were killed and dozens more injured. Officials say the gunman planned the attack for weeks and possibly months leading up to the massacre. On Wednesday, the 21-year-old pleaded not guilty to all charges, including 21 counts of first-degree murder, 48 counts of attempted murder, and 48 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm. The suspect is due back in court on November 1st for a case management conference. And still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, the girlfriend of Daunte Wright files suit against Kim Potter and the city she once policed for. But first, a California father and son stand trial in the death of Kristin Smart. What Smart's former roommate has to say as she takes the stand. And welcome back, everybody. Heading to California as week 3 of testimony is underway for the murder trial of Paul and Ruben Flores. As a friend of the victim tells jurors, one defendant seemed to have a strange interest in her before her disappearance. The father and son are charged in connection with the disappearance and death of Kristin Smart 26 years ago. The son, Paul, is charged with her murder, and prosecutors allege Ruben helped cover up the college student's death by burying her body in his backyard before moving her. Friends of Kristin Smart say the younger Flores seemed to have an unusual interest in the Cal Poly student before she went missing, after leaving an off-campus party around Memorial Day in 1996. Investigators say Paul was the last person seen with Smart. Her friend, Stephen Fleming, testified this week that she seemed uncomfortable when Paul was around and that he was often spotted alone outside of Smart's dorm late at night, even though he didn't live there. Prosecutors believe Paul raped and killed Smart after allegedly volunteering to walk her back to her dorm after the party, but she was never seen again. Terry, this is a sad case, and Smart disappeared in 1996, making this case more than 2 decades old. I'm wondering if that could cause any issues here.
It's definitely going to cause some real issues. It's tragic that these cases go unsolved for so long, especially when it involves someone who has disappeared and then, of course, they find that she died. The number one issue is going to be witness testimony. Memories fade after such a long time, and literally some of the witnesses may have passed away. Then there's the issue of the forensic evidence. There may be evidence that was never collected, or even if it had been collected, it may be lost at this point. And then the other issue, I think, is getting the authorities to be committed, to get the resources involved in following up and making sure they have all of the evidence to actually try a case like this, because it will take a great deal of evidence.
Bernardo, Smart's body has never been found. Does that mean it's more difficult for the prosecution to successfully win?
Absolutely, Jesse. As a former homicide prosecutor, I can tell you this. When you're dealing with a cold case, a homicide from 1996, when times were different in the sense of you didn't have social media, you didn't have the technology that you have now where you can track a person, even though you don't find a body, makes it much more difficult because it was so in the past in 1996, especially when you think and what they say, no body, no case, because we don't know what she died from. You lose the forensic evidence in regards to her body, and we don't have a cause of death. And there's always that piece of doubt that a juror may have that, look, she may still be alive or living a separate life somewhere else under a different identity.
But we've also covered cases where a jury comes back and convicts even without a body. So we'll see which way this shakes out. We move over to Florida now, where officers make an eviction notice mishap. Law&Crime Network Sierra Gillespie has a story.
Hello? Hello? What are you doing?
We're here to finalize the eviction.
What eviction?
It was posted a week ago.
An eviction notice served at the wrong home.
What is your name?
My name is Jennifer, and that is my house.
Jennifer, what's your last name, Jennifer?
Jennifer Michelle's Ring doorbell camera captured the incident when Pasco County, Florida officers attempted to serve her an eviction notice.
I am caught up on my bills. Nobody has served me an eviction notice.
The problem? Officers were at the wrong house.
What the hell is going on?
Through Ring's live video feature, Michelle spoke to officers as they worked to disable her front door's lock.
What is your name?
My name is Jennifer, and that is my house.
Jennifer, what's your last name, Jennifer?
After telling them her name, officers realized they were at the wrong house.
Oh, shit. What? Oh, damn it.
That's when officers admitted they had the wrong address.
Hey, we do apologize. We have the wrong house. It's the next door neighbors. What we're going to have to do is they're going to have to repair their locks. I don't know.
My dogs are inside.
The Pasco County Sheriff's Office says the incident was a mistake and is now under investigation. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Yikes. All right, coming up on Law&Crime Daily, emotions running high as victim impact statements are presented in the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial. Plus, the passenger in Daunte Wright's vehicle seeks damages from the city where he was killed. And welcome back, everybody. The woman who was seated next to Daunte Wright when he was shot and killed is now suing ex-officer Kim Potter and the city where she worked. Alana Albrecht Payton now seeks $150,000 in damages for the injuries she suffered during the incident. The lawsuit also says that she suffers PTSD from watching Wright die in front of her. Albrecht Payton says she and Daunte Wright were in the early stages of dating when he was pulled over for a traffic violation in April 2021. Ex-officer Kim Potter later shot Wright, claiming she mistook her gun for a taser. Potter was ultimately convicted in connection to Wright's death last year and is currently serving a 2-year prison sentence. Albrecht Payton testified in December of last year, outlining the injuries she suffered when Wright's vehicle crashed after the shooting.
I had a lacerated lip, so I have a scar. I had stitches. It went all the way through. I don't know what happened, but all the way through my lip. Stitches in my ear and a fractured jaw. I had wires on my jaw for about 6 weeks, maybe a little more. And I sustained like a concussion.
So, Bernardo, here's something interesting. Daunte Wright's family reached a more than $3 million settlement with Brooklyn Center earlier this year. So could Albrecht Payton receive the same kind of payout, a similar payout, anything like that?
So, Jesse, I don't think that she's going to receive a similar payout of $3.2 million as Daunte Wright's family got, and several reasons, because there are several factors that play into whether a case should settle. Number one, she didn't die. Unfortunately, she was involved in that horrible accident in which she actually saw Daunte Wright get killed in front of her. And it is so clear that she's traumatized by it, because look at when she's testifying a year after Daunte Wright being killed, and she's still so emotionally disturbed by it. So taking into account that she didn't die and that she had a broken jaw, and also that Kim Potter wasn't charged with anything relating to her, the settlement, if there is a settlement, is going to be much, much lower than the $3.2 million.
But Terry, let's just assume the suit is not settled, okay? Do you think she's got a good chance of prevailing with this?
She has an excellent chance of prevailing. Listen, she sued both the city and Kim Potter, and that was a smart move. Kim Potter, she sued for negligence in shooting into that car and risking the life of everyone around Kim Potter. And she sued the city because that's the deep pockets. She only asked for $150,000 in damages, which I think is quite reasonable because she has gone through quite a bit of both physical and emotional distress. She's been diagnosed with PTSD, acute and post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and you can tell from her testimony, I agree, that she definitely is still suffering both physically and emotionally from that traumatic event, and no one helped her. They put her in handcuffs, in fact, so I think she should have brought a suit.
As you're seeing, the ripple effects from that event still coming about. When we come back, the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial. Parents give heartfelt victim impact statements that seem to affect a defense attorney. And welcome back. Emotional reactions from family members, friends, and even a defense attorney as victim impact statements are presented in the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial. Last year, the gunman pleaded guilty to 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder for the deadly Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in 2018. It's now up to a Broward County jury to decide whether the defendant receives life in prison or the death penalty. Throughout the trial, we've seen emotional responses from the parents in the gallery, including Max Schachter, whose son Alex died in the shooting. On Wednesday, he addressed the jury.
4.5 years ago, Alex was just a 9th grader sitting in his English class at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on Valentine's Day. A day that should have been filled with candy, hearts, balloons, and love. It was the last day we would see our sweet little boy, Alex. The last day we would hug Alex. The last day we would kiss Alex. Our family is broken. There is this constant emptiness. I feel I can't truly be happy if I smile. I know that behind that smile is the sharp realization that part of me will always be sad and miserable because Alex isn't here.
And jurors also heard from the mother of Jamie Guttenberg this week, who described how her daughter's murder affected her teenage son.
Our son Jesse was 17, a junior at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School when Jamie's life was taken. At the end of every school day, he would meet Jamie, just a freshman near her last class, and they would walk together to his car so he could drive her home. This particular day, it would have been at the 1200 building, but he didn't get the chance. After the tragedy, Jesse eventually made the painful decision to go back to the school where it all happened. Every day during his senior year, he parked his car and walked past the 1200 building. His first period class that year was right across from the building. He struggles immensely with survivor's guilt, why he made it out that day and Jamie didn't. He beats himself up inside for not being able to save her, even though it wasn't possible. He fears losing his family, and he is not the same upbeat and happy person and feels he'll never be the same.
Bernarda, these victim impact statements are incredibly hard to hear. They're very emotional for many people reading or listening, and even one of the defendant's own defense attorneys was seen crying 2 days in a row. I have to ask, is that appropriate behavior for a defense attorney? I mean, she is human.
Well, the last part, Jesse, about it is that she is human, and we all are human. I don't think there's anyone except Nicholas Cruz who has not been affected emotionally by listening to the testimony during this death penalty phase of this trial. You got to think, for that attorney as well as the jurors, they're impacted not just by what is being said by the witness in the witness stand, but also the family of the loved ones that are sitting in the courtroom as well. So they're getting it more than we are, since we're seeing it from our homes or our offices. So unfortunately, we can pick and choose what we want to see, but for those jurors, those attorneys, they're watching every second of it. I will say this: if it were the prosecutor that were crying and I were the defense attorney, I will bring it up to the judge and ask for a mistrial. But because it's a defense attorney, I don't think it's going to be an issue, because they'll spin it and say, I acknowledge that he was wrong and that we're all human.
Right, right. Terry, 17 people were killed that day. Each one has, their own story. Is there one account that's maybe impacted you the most?
Well, you're right. They all have their own stories, and all of those stories are important, and they should be heard. And the pain of any of the family members is just unthinkable. But the testimony of the Gutenbergs, to me, was particularly difficult to hear. Mr. Gutenberg actually said he and the family was running late that morning, and he said he was rushing them, and he told them, you gotta go, you're gonna be late. And that was the last thing he ever said to them. And then hearing from Mrs. Gutenberg, she basically said that her son now has this guilt issue about leaving his sister. And the father was the one who said, go, don't go back in, run. And now they have a difficult relationship. So I think all in all, it's very hard to hear the testimony that goes in that kind of fashion, where they all have such a hard time now getting along and having vacations together.
You're hoping it brings some sense of closure to the families at the very least. Terry, Bernarda, thank you so much. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.